this computer. And now you know you're being recorded. I'm going to jump right in to screen share. Here we go. And actually, we're going to come here. I'm going to come here. And these are the, hello. Oh, my computer likes to take its time. Hello, 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 hello. It is taking its time. These are the topics that we're going to go over. We're going to talk a little bit about the lingo and some concepts and some ideas. And at the end, this doesn't take very long. And at the end, if you want, I can go over. I did queue up a few videos that might be of interest to people, so I could talk about some of the beliefs that I personally have. Some might not, but I have this. So let's just jump right in. Hello. Oh, this is me. I am an AKC scent work judge. I was licensed fairly early on when AKC rolled out their scent work program. As a group, we host seminars and trials, and I'm actually looking to bring the incomparable Holly Bouchard to Ithaca, New York, which is where we're located, in May. And if there's any way you can even audit that, I strongly urge you to do so. I do teach nose work. I am a boutique trainer, which is a fancy way of saying I am a hobby trainer. The good thing about that is that I do one thing. I teach nose work. I'm all about nose work, and it is the only thing I focus on. I also compete. This is my boy dog, Toka, handsome dude. This is my lovely girl, Keo, and we're going to talk more about them in just a moment, because we're going to talk about what's nose work. Okay, come on now. So it is a dog sport based on professional scent detection work, but there is no contraband involved. The dogs will search for these little packets of odor, which are known as hides, and those hides will hold cotton swabs that are going to be scented with generally 3 different essential oils. The main ones that you will find in almost every single venue in which you can trial will be birch, anise, and clove. Convention is that you start with birch, and then you move to anise, and then you move to clove. And people like Janet, and I believe Lisa is also on, she's another one of my students, and Marg know that those are the 3 biggies. AKC has also added cypress, and the UKC has another one, and I don't remember the name, but these are the ones that are most commonly used. The dog will be searching in these various areas, which are known as elements. An interior, could everybody please make sure that they're muted unless you have a question? Thank you. Interiors means that you have to have a room or a building. You have to have 4 sides and a roof, and those have to be full walls. Exteriors are what they sound like. They can include pavilions with half walls. Containers, anything that can hold something. And vehicles, pretty obvious, can range anything from a car or a van to a trailer to a Mack truck to boat trailers, etc. And then AKC and UKC have this other class, which is known as buried, where you have hides either in containers of sand or containers of water, or when you get to the higher levels, both. So I've been asked this a lot lately. What's the difference between nose work and scent work? And there really is no difference. It's just that some people use one and some people use the other. If you look at the 2 major organizations, one is the National Association for Canine Scent Work, which is NACSW, or the AKC. I'm admitting a couple more people. NACSW calls it, even though it says scent work here, they actually call it nose work, and the AKC calls it scent work. I call myself a scent work judge for the AKC because that's the name that they use. Let's jump into what equipment you might need. It is recommended that you have a 10-foot lead, and I see people run, when I'm judging, I see people run their dogs in their collars on 6-foot leads. In my mind, a 6-foot lead is way too close. If you are running your dog on a 6-foot lead, you are putting a lot of pressure on your dog. Imagine someone standing a foot away from you and looking over your shoulder or looking down at you. And think about how that is invading your personal space. The dog feels the exact same way. So a 10-foot lead gives you plenty of space to allow your dog to work independently, yet enough control so your dog isn't running around and pulling over. I also know a lot of people who don't use harnesses, and they are not required. However, I recommend that you get them and use one, because you put that harness on at the start line. Please make sure that you're muted. You put your harness on at the start line and it tells your dog, you're going to work. This is what you're doing. You're doing nose work. And it helps give the dog context and helps differentiate nose work from every other sport that you're doing. And these are just a couple of commonly used harnesses that seem to be popular. I use Comfort Flexes on my dogs because they're easy to get on and off and they're not terribly expensive. I have Akitas, which you saw, and they blow their coats a lot, and the Velcro on the harnesses gets stuffed with fur. So I replace them a fair amount of time because the Velcro doesn't stay shut. So I like these because they're easy to use, they're sturdy, and they're inexpensive, relatively speaking. Let's talk very briefly about our dog's amazing sense of olfaction. They blow us out of the water. We are visual creatures, and we do not appreciate how amazing the dog's sense of olfaction is. So if you take a look at this picture right here, it's a little bit hard to see. You can see that this is a dog's olfactory system, and there is a very complex, convoluted structure within their nose, which allows them to scent correctly. So when you compare a dog's sense of odor to a human sense of odor, we have about 6 million olfactory receptors. They have 300 million. They blow us out of the water. And I always say this, people say, oh, my dog gets so tired when they're doing nose work. It's because 40% of their brain is associated with the sense of smell. So when you're using 40% of your brain, even if it's just for a few minutes, when you're done, you're pooped. Scientists sort of estimate that the dog's sense of smell is 10,000 to 100,000 times greater than ours. So really, we are not particularly adept at catching odor, and dogs are just fabulous. So what dogs can play the sport because it's a game for them. And I really like this slide because you're not gonna be able to see Ellie. Oh, I'm gonna have to show this. Seniors, puppies, handicapped pups, recuperating dogs, shy dogs, reactive dogs. Nose work is known as a sport for reactive dogs. And that is because when you are training, when you are in trials, there is no dog-to-dog interaction. And when I'm training, COVID is not a problem for any of the people that I train with, because they know you need to be at least 10 feet apart from any other dog. So it's fine for reactive dogs because the dog isn't going to come into contact with any other dogs. Oh, I'm gonna have to break this just for a second. Hello. This dog right here is my lovely girl, Keo. And this was taken Monday at her acupuncture appointment because she goes to Cornell a couple of times a week for acupuncture and underwater treadmill. And remember Ellie, because we're going to talk about Ellie here too. Keo is 10 years old, and she is really an amazing dog because she was bred for conformation and is deaf. So handicapped dogs, you betcha, handicapped dogs can certainly learn the sport. And she would really rather be a pet, but I asked her to do all these different performance dog sports, and she said, okay. And despite the fact she would really rather be a pet, she is the first Akita to earn a number of really high titles, including NACSW's NW3, then their NW3 Elite, then Elite 1, Elite 2, Elite 3, and then their Elite Championship. So she's retired now. And she likes being retired. And when I pull her harness out, when I pick her harness up, she lights up like a Christmas tree because she knows she's going to have fun. So because of her arthritis, she can't move very fast or very far. And when she's done, she tells me, I'm done. But she still just loves the sport, and it is wonderful enrichment for her. So she's not just lying around the shack and getting bored. This is my baby boy, Toka, who is also an amazing nose work dog. He's also deaf, Handicapped Dogs. And he is the first Akita to earn all of the AKC Master scent work titles. So I started him when he was 8 weeks old. People say, oh, how early can I start my dog? 8 weeks. I started him at 8 weeks. And it's really great to do this with puppies because they get tired. When I have beginner classes, and I'm starting one up this weekend virtually, I tell people this: train your dog 2 minutes twice a day. And people say, only 2 minutes? Yeah, that's all. You want to leave the dog wanting more, and that 2 minutes is going to poop them out. They'll be tired after that. This dog is a blind dog. This little cattle dog belongs to a friend of mine and Addie is blind, had both eyes removed, and loves the sport and is doing well in the sport. Go figure, a blind dog is placing. So yeah, blind dogs can do it. I've had a tripod training with us. And I also know that I know of a blind and deaf dog that is engaged in competing in scent work. So any dog can do it. This little boy, Ali, is a very young, very active, very smart dog who is on limited activity because of major shoulder problems. He's had shoulder surgery and is probably going to have additional shoulder surgery. And his people are so thankful that they started him in nose work because he gets tired out. And again, they pull out his harness and he lights up like a Christmas tree because he knows he's going to play the game. We already talked about reactive dogs, and let's talk a little bit about shy dogs. Oh, let me get out of this again. Here's little Ellie. I love little Ellie. Little Ellie is rocking and rolling in the scent work world. One of my students and now friends, Lisa, adopted Ellie as a rescue, and Ellie was pathologically shy. She would react with fear to virtually everything. And I very distinctly remember the first time we started searching outside. There was a road that was maybe 100 feet, maybe 125 feet away from where we were searching. And she was so petrified of the cars driving on the road, she couldn't concentrate. And now she's trialing at the NW3 level and titling. So it's great for shy dogs. It helps build them confidence, and it also tires them out. You'll notice I say tires your dog out a lot. That's a really big benefit to nose work. So let's talk a little bit about terminology and a few concepts. You'll hear people talking about source. What's source? So if you look at this picture here, you can see a green arrow and a blue arrow and a red arrow. The hide will be placed under the chair here. It'll be placed under the lip of the bin here, and it'll be placed under this stool or this table, whatever this is. Source is the area of highest concentration of odor. And ideally, when your dog is working, they will be at source before you call alert. And you are required to call alert to tell the judge or your coach that your dog is at source. Hide, which is where you're going to place odor. It's going to be that vessel that I mentioned before that is going to contain those prep cotton swabs, birch, anise, clove, cypress, and I forgot what the other one, the UKC one is. I haven't done UKC yet. It can be a tin with holes in it. It can be a centrifuge tube. These are little microfobs. These are big enough to hold the head of one Q-tip. And the reason that you use vessels is because if you put a Q-tip, a straight Q-tip that has essential oil on something, that item will retain that oil, and that item will be considered hot forever. So what's a hot item? It's anything that has been exposed to odor, even if you have that hide in a vessel. A cold item is anything else that has not been exposed to odor. So this, I think it's a bench. This bench is now hot. That chair is now hot. That bin is now hot. Everything else in that room is cold. So why do we care? We care because of this. Once hot, always hot. If you mix your hot stuff with your cold stuff, everything is now hot and your dog is going to go, wait, what? Is that really the thing that contains odor? Or is that something I'm supposed to pass because it doesn't really contain odor? So this is a container search. I just went on the internet. I know the woman who ran this search, and I asked her if I could use photos, and she said, yes, this container is hot. It has to be stored separately. This container is hot. It has to be stored separately. This chair should be stored separately from any other chair because you do not want what's known as residual odor. You have to store hot items separately from cold ones. Always, always, always. I also wanted to talk, did I mess up? I might have messed up the order of the slides about this. Remember when COVID first came out and you heard wear masks, socially distance, stay socially distant, and make sure you're washing your hands. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. You need to keep odor separate, anything hot separate, because, and you need to be very careful about how you handle your prepped Q-tips, because if you have oil on your hands and you start touching stuff, all of a sudden you have oil all over your house, all over, all over. So when you are working with Q-tips, I always wear latex gloves or some sort of plastic or vinyl gloves. And when you're using your Q-tips, get a pair of tweezers and use those tweezers to take Q-tips out of your jars and place them in your tins. Be very careful with how you use odor. You don't want to contaminate a whole bunch of stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about some terminology. Air scenting. Big fan of air scenting because the dog is out there in a search area and catches odor and is able to follow it back to source. Aging is basically you put a hide out and you let it sit around for a while and then the dog starts searching. Ideally, your hides should age at least 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure they age at least 5 minutes. The longer the hide ages, the more diffusion will occur and the more likely the dog will be able to catch it through air scenting. An indication is what your dog does to tell you he's found the hide. And ideally, he'll keep his nose right at source. And we'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. A blind search is when you are in a search area, like when you're in a trial, and hides have been placed by a judge or by what's known as a certifying official. You don't know where they are. And you have to go out, allow your dog to find them, tell you where they are, and then call alert and get the yes from the judge. If you are running what are known as known hides, you know where they are. Running both blind searches and known hides have their benefits. When you're running known hides, you have to be a really good actor because it is amazing how fast your dog will learn your body language because you haven't acted well and you are showing the dog where they are, or you're leading your dog to odor. Blocking is when you're standing in the way, right? So back to this, go back to this. If you're standing here in front of this chair and your dog is searching here, you are blocking odor. So you want to stay out of the way of your dog's search so they can get around the room and find odor correctly. Bracketing, a dog is moving back and forth and a hide will let off what's known as a scent code. Excuse me, a scent cone. When the airflow is coming at the hide, basically there's like a cone of odor. And when you see a dog bracketing, they're going to be moving back and forth within that cone until they reach source. Contamination can be a really big issue. If you drop food, please don't drop food. You have contaminated the search and you have basically made every single dog that comes behind you have a harder time in searching. Or if there's a hot object or a hide that has been placed or left behind in an area, and that confuses the dog, and the dog's like, what there's odor here. And the handler was saying, well, there shouldn't be odor there. There should be odor here. So everybody gets confused. A distraction is something that you're going to have your dog learn how to search past. Generally a toy or a morsel of food. And if you come back to this guy, you see how this is labeled oyster crackers? There were oyster crackers here. And, or there might be a wrapper from an Egg McMuffin, or a little piece of muffin, or a little piece of sausage or something. So your dog has to learn how to search past distractions. And it is entirely doable. My boy dog is a shark. He would do anything for food. And he has searched past open containers of food. It's entirely doable. A few more terms that you need to know about. False alert. The handler thinks their dog is an odor and calls alert. They think the dog has indicated odor and they say alert. That's a false alert. Invariably, the handler says, my dog did this, my dog made a mistake. 99.999% of the time, it is something that the handler has caused. The dog is rarely wrong. It is the handler that has either forced that false alert or somehow triggered that false alert in the dog, and it's usually through handling errors. When I'm judging, I hear this a lot. My dog lied. That's like nails on a chalkboard to me, because dogs don't lie. They don't know how to lie. They are incapable of lying. It is a handler issue. A false alert is 99% of the time plus a handler issue. I love the head snap. The dog will be searching along and they will catch odor and their head will snap around and their body will follow. And for those of you who have already been working in the sport, you've seen it, and it's very exciting, because that is, when you see that head snap, you know your dog is an odor. It's really fun to watch. There are occasionally in the higher levels blank areas or rooms, and there are no hides in that search area. The dog has to successfully convey to the handler, hey, dummy, there's nothing here. Get me out of this space because there's nothing here. An inaccessible hide is one that is placed someplace where the dog can't get their nose right on odor. So it might be a high hide, 8, 10, 14 feet up. It might be within a cabinet or within a drawer. It might be in a stack of chairs. It might be, I remember one search, an elite search that Kia was doing. Was in a college storage room, and it was at the end of the semester, and they had taken, I guess they were doing like a major cleaning of one of the dorms, and they had taken all the trash bins and stacked them up, and there was just this ocean of trash bins, and there was one in there, and Kia was bracketing from side to side to side, and I thought, oh, there's got to be something in there, and I called it, and they gave me a yes, which was pretty exciting. I have also had inaccessible hides behind multiple farm gates that have been stacked up. The dog can't get their nose there. You see them bracketing, and sort of the gold standard for an inaccessible is they're going from side to side to side, and that's when you call it. So that's the end of the official program. Does anybody have, I do have some videos that I've queued up that I'd be happy to show and give some commentary on. Does anybody have any quick questions for me?
This is Shirley.
Hi, Shirley.
Yes. Hi, I do. The one thing that concerns me, because you know Blue has arthritis,
Yes.
are the harness. I worry about the harness because they don't like to put them on the tollers because of it interferes with their gait and because he has arthritis in the front legs. Is there a special harness that wouldn't interfere with his gait? I'm all new to this. I don't know anything about this. So
yeah. So you and I can talk about this offline a little bit if you would like.
okay.
The comfort flex is really just a band around the waist, and it goes around behind the shoulders. And having a dog that has arthritis in her hips, her shoulders, and her elbows, I totally get it when you say you're concerned. A comfort flex is a non-restrictive harness, and you actually have to use a non-restrictive harness. It has to be It has to be something that has a back clip. You can't have a front clip harness because that's considered restrictive. And they are not allowed in trials, and I don't allow them in training. It has to be something
Okay.
that allows the dog to be able to move freely.
Okay, that's something I wanted to clarify. And then when you're talking, again, I don't know anything about
So
this.
and that's fine.
Talking about hot items.
Mhm.
Now, when you're practicing and stuff, how do you change things up? I mean, it's like you only got so many things you can work with in your house. How do you, I guess you designate just a couple of things that are hot items and then keep them away. I just don't quite understand how you do that.
So one of the things that we do is we start with the big tin game, which is totally fun for the dogs. Janet can attest to that. They run around like crazy looking for the big tin. And the tin actually does a fairly good job of containing the odor. Tins do a fairly good job of containing the odor. And I totally get it because my house is about 1,200 square feet. And I have used every single thing in my house for hide.
Yeah.
Every single thing. And that's so and I also have a closet upstairs, part of the linen closet, which is where I keep all my odor. And I know that my dogs know that odor is there. And I also made a whole bunch of kits for people who are starting. So I know that my dogs know that there's odor, and they learn pretty quickly to differentiate in between those.
Okay.
Ideally, you will keep things separate. You absolutely positively have to keep containers separate.
Right.
I am not many of the trainers that I know start with containers, and I do containers last because if you've seen dogs in container searches, there are a lot of container smashers, and that can get you either faults or NQ you in a trial. You can get kicked out of a trial or not get a passing score in a trial because you're smashing containers. And in fact, I've been working with people since June or July, early August, who have seen containers a couple of times. My experience with starting containers last is this. Dogs see containers is like, wow, this is so easy. I just have to check these little boxes and figure out where the odor is, and I get my cookie. So personally, my belief is that I'm a fan of starting with interiors and then moving pretty quickly to exteriors and vehicles and then introducing containers last. If you do it that way, containers are like a piece of cake. There are also a lot of trainers who start dogs searching for food. And I don't know about you, but if I throw a piece of cheese in the yard, my dogs can find that cheese. If I throw a cookie in the yard, my dogs are going to find it. So
yeah, Blue's very food oriented. Yeah, yeah.
You are really lucky. I actually started this giant old rescue Max that I had with a woman who started with containers, and I was talking to people who were in her class. She had one spot and she let me in. I'm not sure why. They've been working on containers for a year with paired food in a year. It's like, well, a year? I think within a few weeks, your dog should be doing exteriors and interiors because they can do it. We let them do it. All right, let them do it. Don't hold them back. So I start pairing just for a little tiny bit and then get rid of the food, pairing food and odor, and get rid of the food within the first day. You don't need it. The dogs will find odor. They're that smart.
Yeah, so just make sure you use odor in tins. Yeah, for that. Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Nancy, can I?
Yeah, that I'm done. Okay.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, the thing is that in your house, you've put hides various places. The odor does linger, but your dog soon learns to go to the hot odor.
Go to source.
Go to source.
They learn pretty quickly to go to source.
Once they get the idea, they may check out. Well, you had it there just yesterday, or you had it there 10 minutes ago, and they'll go check. They'll remember places.
Oh, they remember. They
They
do.
remember, they check him out, but you're not going to reward that. They will go and say, oh, here, it's interesting to watch when they say, oh, I'm getting into hot odor. Where is it? Where has she put it now? And it's a lot of fun.
It's just a blast. So people say, oh, I want my dog to learn nose work. And actually the secret behind learning nose work is that the dogs know how to do it with very little prompting. And it's really the human that needs all the education, because we are the ones who make the mistakes. Yes, we are. And I can say that. And I can say, yes, Janet is raising her hand. I can too. My dogs are deaf, and my boy dog earned his elite championship. And you have to garner 1,000 points in various elite trials. And because elite is such a fun level, I thought, and we only had 3 or 4 trials left, I thought, I gotta let him run off leash. I have a deaf dog. I have no way of recalling him. None. I have to run up and tap him or grab his collar. And I thought, well, what the heck? I don't care if I have to do 3 or 4 or 5 more trials, because elite is just so much fun. You're just running around after your dog. Then they're finding odor and you're calling alert, 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 alert. And the dog gets lots of cookies. It's just a blast. So I thought, let's just do it off leash. Every single search in which I let him run off leash, he found every single hide. And he found in other trials, when I was handling him, he found every single hide, but not 100% of them. So what does that tell you about the handler's involvement? I'm the one who's at fault. So I'm gonna break out of this. Oh, I wanna just move on to the next one. Nose work is the best dog sport ever. I'm going to have a couple of future topics, several handling techniques and concepts. We're going to jump into that a little bit. Scent theory and dynamics, big issue, huge that you understand how odor works. Do I want to compete? No, I don't think so. Yeah, you do. And I think it would be good to do a quick overview of NACSW versus AKC, the pros and the cons, so you know what you're getting into if you're going to compete, because you're going to compete.